Hello, hello, and welcome to Decaf, a production of the Beacon Center of Tennessee. Taylor and Mark back with you on this sunny but absolutely freezing Nashville morning. Mark, you just got back from New York where it was snowing. So what do you prefer? Do you prefer the sunny, dry cold, or do you prefer snow? Because I know what I prefer, but I'm curious about what you would say.
I like the snow with it when it's sunny out and it's kind of snowing, which doesn't happen often, but when it does and it's not windy, that's my favorite thing. I think that I prefer snow generally as long as it's not freezing cold winds, but I would much rather have this than freezing with no snow.
Mm-hmm. Well, I saw a tweet from Nashville Severe Weather earlier today, and it said that we are not done freezing and rain is coming in over the weekend. And that is my least favorite. When it's so like bone chilling, like wet, cold, kind of how you imagine all the Harry Potter books. Like when you're watching the Harry Potter movies, you imagine that they feel like that cold, British, wet. Oh, it's horrible. But honestly, I'll take today. I might have to get out and take a walk later because this is perfect weather. I have to bundle up, but gonna have to take a walk a little bit later. Let's jump right into talking about something that Beacon has been doing a good bit of research and digging and work on over the last year, and that is zoning. People talk all the time, housing prices are skyrocketing, and everyone says we need to rely on the government to bring the housing prices down. That is the last entity that I want to rely on when it comes to bringing housing prices down, unless they want to limit themselves, aka changing zoning. There are so many zoning issues in Nashville specifically, but all across Tennessee that, and we say this all the time, I'm not going to question intentions. I'm sure a lot of these zoning things were put in place with good intentions, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them probably were. And they are just having negative consequences. We fought for years the home business ban in Nashville, a stupid zoning regulation that said that people couldn't do business out of their homes. Insane, no longer the case. And we're digging in and diving in. Our research team is doing so much data for an atlas that we're going to put together of Nashville and the surrounding areas and the restrictive zoning laws. But we did a lot with our blueprint that we released earlier this year, which if you haven't seen it yet, beacontn.org/blueprint. You can see some of those things, but we had a whole slew of property rights and property recommendations to make housing cheaper. Mark, dive into some of those and let's tell the people what we can do to actually make housing cheaper without getting the government more involved than they already are / should be.
You were actually being generous about the intentions of zoning too. I feel like this is the one where it's crazy because people say everything is racist and, most of it's not.
Yeah.
Zoning legitimately was racist when they did it. That was one part of the reason that zoning happened. They wanted to kind of separate the racial dynamics in the neighborhood. And so it actually has horrible intentions. And it's like, it's something that really should be changed, and not just because of that, but because it's not good. It's not good for anybody.
I rely on you to be more blunt and candid than me. I'm the smiling face. You're the hammer.
Yeah, but zoning is. I'm sure there's some zoning laws that were good intentions, but some definitely not. But one of the things that we did when we did our poll, which we've not shared a lot of this information, but we asked people from across the state. We talked about 1,000 people, Democrats, Republicans, all demographics, age-wise, race-wise, gender-wise. We try to get a really good idea of what the state actually looks like when we ask these questions. And what was interesting was we asked people kind of what the most important issues were for them. We gave them 5 issues. And the one we asked them is decreasing the costs associated with buying a home or renting an apartment. That was one of the 5 things we did. And we also did education. We did a couple other big questions. In terms of overall, it was the number one issue that mattered in the state. It was the number one issue that mattered to Republicans. It was the number one issue that mattered to independents. And it was the number 2 issue that mattered to Democrats. So this is across the whole state that the cost of housing is an issue. And then when you ask a little bit more specifically about the issues, 71% of Tennesseans approve of reducing taxes on the purchase of a home in Tennessee to increase access to home ownership. So that's the government, like you said, getting out of the way. 71%.
Get out of the way.
64% want people to reform zoning laws, such as allowing homeowners to add an in-law suite or garage apartments on their properties. 64% is a huge number.
It's a huge number.
And then 58% want to reform zoning laws so it's easier to own and live in a tiny house or container home or on a smaller piece of land. So this is a really popular issue. And like we said, this is really across a spectrum of politics. Where this is not a right or left thing. I mean, the city of Minneapolis did things with zoning. The city of Houston has really eliminated a lot of their zoning. So these are not, conservative cities per se. These are mostly, I mean, Minneapolis is a very liberal city. So it's something that I think a lot of people are calling for. And our goal at Beacon is we're going to launch an interactive map that kind of shows Tennesseans the cost and the impact of zoning on their actual homes. And it's going to be super cool. We're hiring an outside contractor to kind of make the map with our numbers. Ron and Jason are doing a ton of research right now, but it's going to be a very, very cool map where you can see exactly what the zoning is in your area, because zoning is a local, it's a local issue more than it is a state issue. So
it's one of the biggest local issues, I think about even in small town Anniston, Alabama, the planning commission, the city council, anytime you listen to those things, zoning, trying to make everything look a certain way or feel a certain way. The consequences of those policies are that people can't afford homes as easily. Sure, you make the city look nice or you make it look this way or that way, but it makes it so restrictive that people can't afford their homes. And so when we talk about lowering the cost of housing, we got to find a way to do it without getting the government involved, because when you get the government involved, everything gets more expensive. That's just a fact of life. People always say there are only two certainties in life, death and taxes. I would add a third certainty to that, and that's when you get the government involved, things get worse / more expensive. I would absolutely add that. That might fall under taxes, though. But when we do launch this interactive zoning map, everyone should go and look at your area and see all of the various overlays. I was looking at a zoning map that is already done that another group put in place, and it's just overlay over overlay over overlay. How can people even keep up with this? How can the builders keep up with it? The homeowners? There's just no point in keeping up with it. So not only does it make it more expensive, which it clearly does, but it makes it so onerous. You're paying people for their time. You do one thing. What if they change the law right while you're in the middle of progress? Then you have to scrap it and redo everything. It doesn't make any sense. I personally, a lot of people complain about Houston saying that their no zoning causes a lot of problems. I wouldn't hate that. I think it would make things a lot easier. But part of what we do is we try to educate people. And I think that a lot of folks don't realize how horrible zoning issues are in a lot of our biggest cities, especially Nashville. It's insane here. I mean, that's what happens when you have a big city council and a planning commission all coming together to try to make things make sense. It's going to make it make less sense. Too many cooks in the kitchen, too many people trying to impose their will on these certain neighborhoods. Just let the neighborhood. Don't mess with them.
Well, and I mean, the thing that you talked about matters too, because I think you have, especially on the left, the far left, they had this idea that the only way to bring in the cost and make it cheaper to own homes is by having government mandated affordable housing, which you have clearly seen in every city that's been tried. The cost has gone dramatically up. Zoning is something that hurts middle class and poor people. Guess what? I hate to say this, and this might not be popular, but big corporations, rich people, they can figure out, they usually know people. They can get around zoning laws. They can have things changed. They can have things, a special request put in. And it's the people who can't afford to live in Nashville, can barely afford to live there. Of course, when you have more zoning like that, there's going to be less housing. The housing's going to be more expensive, and it's going to be a lot harder for an entryway to get in. So we have seen with every stat, it doesn't matter what it sounds like, the left needs to get off of this government mandated affordable housing. It doesn't work. It's been proven not to work. There's no evidence at all that it works. We know it doesn't, and they keep bringing this up. It's like they try it out every time things get more expensive, and these things are getting more expensive in the cities where they have the most of this. And they said, we just need more and more. At some point, it's going to be like 10 people living there, and that's it. It's insane. People leave your city, and when you look at places like San Francisco, New York, the places that do this affordable housing mandate, the problem's gotten worse, not better. So, I think we need to, I'm sure there'll be some proposals next year, but the goal for us first is to show you what zoning looks like in your area in Tennessee. Because, we're starting in the middle Tennessee region, but a lot of people have no idea, including myself, what the specific zoning is of their county or their city. So it's showing that people, and then showing how much lower properties, and not just properties to own, people forget this, it's how much it costs to rent properties. That also goes up with more zoning.
It all plays into it. So stay tuned for that. You're going to want to see it. You're going to want to know how your neighborhood is zoned, because good luck navigating city maps. It's almost impossible. But we're going to be putting a lot of emphasis on home ownership. And how onerous it is to get to that place and renovate your home and actually live there. We're going to be talking about that a lot over the next year. So stay tuned for that. And again, if you haven't seen our blueprint, check it out, beacontm.org/blueprint. Let's do one of our most favorite topics, the Biden crazy statement of the week. I feel like we just need a dedicated segment of stuff Biden says. Because Joe Biden, President Biden, sat down with Cal Penn, who is, I think, one of the funniest people. I love Cal Penn. I'm rewatching House right now, and he was on House years ago, and he played, even though he was playing a really smart doctor, he was still kind of like dopey and whatever, and it's just his character. But he sat down with an interview with Cal Penn. Wasn't on Comedy Central, but like, I think it was funny in a way that he didn't intend for it to be funny, because Joe Biden got up there and told the most odd, sometimes you hear a story and it's just unsettling. Like, it's not scary, it's not creepy, but it's like unsettling, like something feels wrong. And that's what Joe Biden did this week. Mark, give us a rundown of the story, and then we'll give some commentary on what we think is going on here.
Well, first of all, he admitted to lie. He lied in one way or the other. And, I'm not trying to be, but like, if this would have been Trump saying this, I feel like this would have been all over every news outlet in the world. So basically he said, and the details were weird about how he decided this, but he said in high school, when he became for gay marriage, when he saw two men in suits kissing or something like that. Now, of course, you go back 10 years, which is like 50 years out of him being in high school. He said that marriage between a man and a woman, there's no question about it. So, and it's like, I think Kamala Harris said something about how she was like listening to Biggie and Tupac in her car like 10 years before they had come out when she was in high school. Like, so it's just, these are just stupid. They're lies. And I don't know. And you can say whatever you want about Joe Biden. He's lying in one way or the other. Either he lied about thinking it's between a man and a woman, or he lied about, and we're not getting the issue of gay marriage. That's not even the point. The point is that no, it's like he is just intentionally lying to the American people at some point, and it just is, it comes off as so inauthentic, right? Both of them do. And this is not a big issue. I don't care when he was for it or when he was not, but just be honest about it. I mean, and it's because he was, Cal Penn is, a gay actor, and I guess he was talking to him, so he wanted to make himself seem like he was maybe for it before it was cool.
Even Cal Penn's eyes told a whole story there. He was looking at him like, so President Biden, you're telling me in the 1950s, your dad was driving you to school and you saw two men in suits kiss on a sidewalk in the 1950s. And you looked at your dad, and your dad said, son, love is love. It's like those congressmen, I think you know exactly where I'm going with this. Those congressmen will put on Twitter, tonight my 4-year-old looked at me and said, Daddy, why are we raising taxes? Like, whatever.
Yeah, I know.
It was one of those types of stories. And, if that did happen to Joe Biden, cool. That means that he lied a few years ago when he said that marriage is between he believes marriage is between a man and a woman. But the likelihood that actually happened in the 1950s, I'm sorry, doesn't pass the smell test as far as I'm concerned. I am not buying it. And that's what I'm so sick of, is it's not limited to him. Like you just said before, Vice President Harris, she said that she was listening to Biggie and Tupac in her car 10 years before they even burst onto the scene. It's frustrating that politicians will make up an origin story just to pander to the people who they think are listening. Like, if you lived a boring life and didn't have all of these experiences, that's also okay. You're allowed to have opinions without anecdotes. That's fine. Just don't make these things up. That's so weird. I don't understand it. It's so inauthentic.
But it's also like, this has been consistent with what Joe Biden's done. He made up a guy named Corn Pop. I mean, there's been different stories. I think he said he went to Delaware.
I forgot about Corn Pop.
I think he said he went to Delaware State, which is like a historically black college, when he actually went to Delaware. Like, he just kind of makes stuff up. And again, a lot of politicians do this, and Trump did it a lot, and he got a ton of press when he did it. I just feels like there's silence when Joe Biden makes up stupid stuff. Like, I don't know how much I heard about Trump saying that he had the biggest inauguration crowd ever, which was clearly not true. There was no doubt about it. But there's the news covered it for weeks, and for some reason this has just kind of been let go of. Like, he lied at some point. He lied. It seems like in the 1950s is when he lied, but either way, it's like he definitely. And this is just not. this, I try to defend the media when I can, but this is just somebody saying, oh, it's almost like you can get like Joe being Joe when he lies about stuff, but when Trump does it, he's the next coming of Hitler. I don't quite understand how that works. And again, I have no way defending some of the things Trump said, because he's told a bunch of things that are like, and usually they're dumb things that are not true, but for some reason, Joe Biden doesn't get viewed the same way, despite doing very similar things about his personal life, just kind of actively lying about things.
I know. I agree. It doesn't make any sense. And I'm just going to repeat what I said, because this is my number one thing. You're allowed to have an opinion without having an anecdote, like a flashy anecdote that helped form that opinion. That's what I feel like they all lie about all the time, is these anecdotes and these stories that help them form their opinions. Bro, don't make up a story. Just say that you have this core conviction or you have this opinion and move on with it. We don't need some flashy sentimental story. You got an opinion, period. That's it. Moving on. It drives me absolutely insane. So that's our hypocrisy of the week segment with President Biden. If you haven't seen that, look it up. It's worth seeing because it's very unsettling. And I'm curious to know if other people are as unsettled as I was when I was watching it, because I was just kind of creeped. The vibe was weird. It was just a weird vibe. And he was having trouble spitting the words out. It was just, the vibes were off. I didn't like it.
It's also, can I say one more thing? Like, if you're going to lie, like, at least do it in a way that you can't immediately be proven like you're lying. Like, he knows what he said. It's not like it was obviously we've had some issues, I think, in Tennessee and elsewhere about people lying on their resume. But it's like, that's at least a little bit, like, not, obviously that's inexcusable too, but like, that's at least a little bit harder to prove. Somebody actually has to do some work. When you say something and they can immediately find a clip of you 10 years ago saying the exact opposite thing, like, you're not even lying well. I don't understand.
Yeah, put some effort into it. We want to see you guys hustling out here to make your lies. we on Decaf want to see you guys working for your lies. I feel like we're getting unhinged. Let's let's talk about March Madness for a second. Mark helped me with my bracket. I have a very competitive bracket going on with my fella, and I am determined to win because he needs to know, this is still a new relationship, and he needs to know who's the smartest, who's the best, and who wins at everything. And that's me with a little help from Mark. So, Mark, who do you have in your, let's just go top four. Who are you taking to the Final Four for March Madness this year?
Yep. I have a very strange top four like I usually do, where, a lot of people go to the chalk to go 1 and 2 seeds. That's not how I do it. And I remember I got a 10 seed a few years ago, South Carolina, which I called in the Final Four. So I have, I think Houston is the team I like the most. They're really good. They're the overall number 2 seed behind Alabama. Really good team though, as long as Marcus Sasser plays. So I have them. And I have my alma mater, Marquette, who's a 2 seed, which is like one of the first times I'm taking them where it's not weird. A lot of other people are taking them to the Final Four as well. And then comes my 2 really interesting ones. Kind of forgotten about. I really like TCU, who is a 6 seed. They are really good. They made the Elite 8 last year. They have almost everyone back. They have, a team that is built to win in March, in my opinion. And then I have just a team that people have forgotten about. Everyone's really excited about Duke, and they're talking about Duke, but like, I like Virginia. They were they tied for the regular season championship in the ACC, and they play excellent defense, and defense matters in March. So I think they have the best defense in the country. They only give up like 52 points a game. Their offense struggles sometimes, but that's what I like. And then for my major upset, it's not as big as other people, but take Kent State over Indiana in the first round. I love that one. And the major one to watch out for that no one, I have not heard one person talk about this on the whole media. Watch out for Princeton over Arizona in that 15-2 game. That is a weird one. I'm not taking them outright, but that is going to be a close game, and I think they have a real chance of winning. So that's what I got. I have Houston over Marquette in the finals. So that's what I have.
Okay. Well, I took some of your advice on some of the things, and some of it I followed my heart and my convictions for who I am. So in my Final Four, I've got Alabama versus Marquette and Houston versus, who do I have them versus? Sorry, I'm checking back. Kansas. Okay. I got Houston versus Kansas, Alabama versus Marquette, and then in the final game, I've got Alabama over Houston. Now, I pick Alabama every year. It's just who I am. Except for the one year that I did listen to you and I won $250 in a betting pool. I didn't take Alabama that year. But typically, I take Alabama every single time, and it always absolutely just kicks me in the teeth. But
this is not a bad year to take them, though. A lot of people like them. So this is not just you being a fan. Like, this is a normal pick. Just like me and Marquette.
This is a normal pick. I know. It's kind of fun that both of our alma maters are actually really good this year. I do have Alabama beating Marquette. They're in the Final Four to go to the championship. But I was excited to pick both of our teams. Like, a lot of you may know this, a lot of you may not. Mark and I are like best friends. And ultimately, even though he doesn't cheer for Alabama, I do want to see Marquette do really well. And I'm excited if we do have an Alabama Marquette Final Four game. That would be really fun for me. I would love to watch that.
That is not true. I don't cheer for Alabama in football. I hate them in football. I'm good with them in basketball. I like them. I mean, I don't like them as much now that, like, you know, there was a murder on the team and that somebody else helped with the murder, their best player. But no, I like it. I actually have no issue with them. And I don't hate the SEC. I would also have one watch out. I think we probably have a lot of Tennessee fans on this podcast.
Sure.
The Raging Cajuns of Louisiana are going to be really tough, and that seems like Tennessee could be gone in the first round. Everyone's talking about them potentially making a Final Four run. They got to watch out. That's a long, athletic Raging Cajuns team, so it should be fun to watch.
I'm not really good historically on basketball, but wasn't Tennessee's year last year? Like, I just feel like Tennessee was better last year than they are this year. And everybody's still talking about them. But I think that that's just the delusion. Sorry, all you Tennessee fans listening. I think that's just the delusion of being a Vols fan, is that you always think that this is going to be your year. And it never is, baby.
Last year, I was saying, they had me fooled for a little bit. I'm like, man, they are really good.
Yeah.
And I think they're losing the Sweet 16, and they won the first round big. And I was actually right about that, or they might have lost before that. But then I watched the first two rounds, like, oh no, maybe they are going to win it all. And then they lost. So yeah, classic. I mean, and they lost one of their best players in Ziegler. But the advanced stats love Tennessee. I will say that it's not just Vols fans. A lot of people, analysts, love them because they have a really good advanced stats, if you believe in that. I do not. And I think, you know, if they get by Louisiana, Duke's going to take them down. So I don't think that's going to be a good year for – I think the SEC is going to have a good year. I just don't think Tennessee's going to be the team that does well with it.
You know what? We do love to hear that. One last thing before we go. I am so very obsessed with Ted Lasso. And on this day of recording, we're recording this on March 15th, Ted Lasso season, is it 3 release date? It was supposed to be today. It actually dropped last night, and it threw everybody off. But I know, so exciting. Jenny's has come out with a biscuits with the boss ice cream flavor. We tried it the other night, and it was so awesome. Good. They have a Ted Lasso flavor. It's so good. They had a cardboard cutout of Ted Lasso in Jenny's. I took a little selfie with him. It's so good. And I just want to – y'all know me. I'm kind of like a softie. I love shows and media that makes you feel good. There's so much – as my mother would say, smut out there, just gross things that are demoralizing and not family friendly to watch. And given they say the F word a lot on Ted Lasso, but I credit that to them being British. But Ted Lasso is a show that is just so happy. Like, there's nothing in it that is like, even the conflicts are resolved in a 30-minute episode. It's just such a happy show. And I love to see a happy, uplifting, heartwarming show do so well, because people oftentimes, you know, I talk about loving my PBS shows, Downton Abbey, All Creatures Great and Small, all of those shows that are uplifting and happy and heartwarming. But Ted Lasso is one that's more mainstream than my things that I like to watch that don't make me feel gross. I don't know, Mark, you're a sports guy. Does Ted Lasso appeal to you?
Yeah, but I mean, I think that you kind of hit we obviously believe in capitalism, and there's like this hole in the market of like happy shows, but like happy in not just because I think you have these happy shows like, this is stupid. Like this, It's like happy in an authentic way. I think that's what makes the show so good. And I mean, I think that everyone craves that. Like, everything we see is, I don't know, we hear about the Vanderpump Rules, person cheating on their husband. Yes. You see all these shows where, the conflict outweighs any positive things that happen. And And it's like, it feels like it's real. It's like there's just something about that show that's great, but I feel like I like that generally. I miss that type of thing. I remember we talked, it was probably a year ago, and that's not a thing anymore, but like that My Mom, Your Dad was like a wholesome actual reality show with like people and their kids, and you know, it wasn't a love, but it's like these people found friendships, and it's like you just crave. I think people just crave that positive thing when that's not happening right now. Right now, Ted Lasso is intentionally, stayed away from political stuff. They've intentionally, like, they're not alienating their audience. They're not trying to make some kind of stand, which happens so much today. Like, even shows like, oh, that's happy. Like, oh, that's anti-Republican. That's anti-Republican. Okay. They like, and they try to sneak it in a little bit. And, there is something, this idea. It's like, they're just trying to, make people happy. They want everyone to watch their show. They're not trying to alienate people. And I just really like that. Cause I feel like I am so, and I'm not even, I think some of my political beliefs are a little bit different than even, but like, I'm so tired of being hit over the head every time I watch a show about, oh, capitalism's awful. And like, they'll just like find ways to hit you over the head with this thing that isn't even true about capitalism, or, how people don't care about the poor, whatever. And it's just, it's annoying. So it's nice to have a show that doesn't do that.
I know. I really miss the days of sitcoms. I go back all the time and rewatch Friends and Frasier and all of the sitcoms of the 90s that were just happy, stupid shows that you didn't have to think about it, and you weren't being hit over the face with things. The Office, Parks and Rec. I've recently been watching Abbott Elementary, and I love Abbott Elementary, but they're doing this whole storyline that's trashing charter schools right now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want to watch this anymore. This is like what I work so hard for, and you're making it political, and I don't want to watch this anymore. And that's why I love Ted Lasso. It reminds me of watching something like Frasier or Friends or one of the sitcoms that I used to watch, Boy Meets World, like on TGIF and things like that. So if you haven't watched Ted Lasso, it's on Apple TV Plus. We are not paid for this, but if you haven't watched it, you definitely should, because it's one of the happiest. Just give it a chance. People are saying it looks stupid. It's not. It's really sweet. It's really happy, and it will make you happy. And it just reminds you that our brains can't handle us sitting there watching murder documentaries all the time. I'm saying this to myself. Our brains can't handle us sitting there watching murder documentaries all day, every day. We need something heartwarming and happy that lifts us up. And Ted Lasso does that for me. And for Mark and I, the avid sports fans that we are, it's got a little bit of everything.
And I've not heard one. Okay, that's not true. I've only heard one person say bad things about Ted Lasso, and it was some stupid opinion article on Salon or Slate, basically saying how they didn't do enough about like political stuff. So it's like everybody exactly.
Perfect criticism.
Like, what a great way to watch a show. But like, it doesn't matter who you are, and like, I don't like soccer. I think soccer's dumb.
I don't care,
it's great.
Yeah.
But it's great to watch. So it's like it has that piece where it doesn't matter what walk of life you're from, where you're from. It's just, like you said, it's just a good show. So if you have Apple TV Plus, watch it. If not, get a week trial and start to watch it. I think you'll be obsessed with it.
Just take a week off work and tear through all of the seasons. You won't regret it. All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. This has been Decaf, a production of the Beacon Center of Tennessee. If you don't already, subscribe to our show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and we will catch you next week.